Thanks, Randy. Well, our first presenter is ready to rock and roll, I think. Mick, I'm an early bird, so we generally watch Channel 11 TV at 5 in the morning, earlier if I could, but I'm not the first to say we miss you on TV, right? I'm honored to be able to introduce a friend of ours to agriculture, Mick Kjar. Mick and I have shared farm program stories and products since I know the 1990 Farm Bill. We did a show together with Extension, and I tried to get that video here. It was really funny to look at you and I 25 years ago. But it was a long time ago. Mick will cover forecasting the 2016 growing season, and I think a new way. Mick grew up on a farm in the Cheyenne Valley in North Dakota. He spent 43 years on radio in the Midwest. Mick currently has a show, Farm Talk, on Ag News 890 AM. Mick, we do miss you on TV, but please welcome the Mick Kjar.
And thanks, everybody. Hey, thanks for coming. Let's get this going. I have a lot of things to talk about and a limited amount of time, so thanks for coming and thanks for being interested. The two things that nobody can control in farming. Everybody's really good at growing corn. Everybody's really good at growing beans. But the things you can't control are the things that drive you crazy. The markets and the weather. And if we could control either one of those, or both, life would be a lot better. So I'll try to do a little bit, to give you a little bit of a handle on what's coming for 2016. The graphics that I've made, I did over the New Year's weekend. A lot of you were either watching football or nursing a headache, and I made a forecast for you today about a month ago. In the last 30 days, I'm really happy to find that a lot of other the big guys are kind of falling in line behind what this forecast is going to say. So yes, do you really want $7 corn? You know that when that's happened in the past, somebody's not only had a real bad day, they've had a real bad year. So, and that happened most recently in 2012. So what's going to happen? Well, let's find out. First of all, everybody told you a little bit about who they are and what they do. I'm a North Dakotan, yeah, you bet. I was born right here, just up the road a ways in a little hospital called St. Luke's. So I'm from the southeast corner of North Dakota. Here's my hometown, McLeod, a kitty corner, oblong-looking little town that some of you have been to the Sand Dune Saloon. Last time I was in the Sand Dune Saloon, I was 12 years old. Sorry, I've never been to Cowboy Up. I either go to Farm Fest, don't go to Wee Fest, but yeah, the Swayams, the Wickhorns, and yeah, the Silver Prairie. I've been to the Silver Prairie. That's a great place. So anyway, yeah, McLeod is where I'm very happy. 9 miles northeast of McLeod. You know, McLeod's famous for the one-room country schoolhouse. I was in a one-room country schoolhouse smaller than that in Freeman Township, 2.5 miles west of Highway 18 on 27. John Higson took over my dad's place there. We're right across from Howard Frisk, and you know that little field there? That's where I learned how to cultivate corn on an Alice Chalmers WD-45 4-row mounted cultivator, and that's where I killed a lot of corn plants as I learned how to cultivate. So, but anyway, I grew up on cows and corn and alfalfa, spent a lot of time up in the haystack. There's the Cheyenne Valley National Grasslands that Dale talked about. What a wonderful place to grow up. Hardly any roads there. Sand Dune Township of North Dakota. I think that's the only township in the whole state where they never built a church. It's all pastures, no roads. So what a great place to grow up. But I think a lot of you might be surprised, although I grew up with cows and corn. There's a little fact, you know, when you watch the Bison football show and Jeremy's interviewing the football players, and there's, you know, what's the one thing that people might not know about you? And, you know, like Andrew Bonnet's the best dancer on the team. I was surprised about that. And Carson Wentz, born in, Raleigh, North Carolina? That was surprising. There's one thing that you might be surprised to hear about me. I was raised on a mostly vegetarian diet. That's right. I consumed a lot of vegetarians in my day. So although I come from the grasslands of North Dakota, southeast North Dakota, and grass-fed beef's got its own label, there's nothing better than a corn-fed steak, I guarantee you. I'm here to testify. Outback, that filet, oh, that's good. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about, in speech class, you learn, can I walk away from the mic here and talk? Okay, in speech class, you learn that you got to have the introduction, the body, and the close. You tell them what you're going to tell them, you tell them, and then you tell them what you told them. So that's the format we're going to follow. We are in El Nino 101, or we'll go through El Nino 101. We are it's tied for the strongest El Nino ever. So we got to talk a little bit about El Nino, what it is, and its effects, and how El Nino and La Nina affect weather patterns. We're about as far away from an ocean as you can get anywhere in the world, so it affects the northern plains crops a lot differently than other parts of the world. The latest El Nino is coming to an end. But how quickly it's ending and how quickly it goes to La Nina really might determine what the weather is going to be like. I'll give you other people's forecasts. When you go to, here Leon and all the other people who give forecasts, they all talk about what they think. I'm going to tell you what other people think, other government agencies, and then I'll tell you what I think for the upcoming growing season. And then, like Dale said, text your questions to 22333, and afterwards, I'll tell you, you can ask me anything about anything, and I'll tell you everything. That won't take long. But I know what you guys want to ask. I'll tell you right up front, the answer is no. I don't have Stephanie Getz's phone number. Sorry. So, not in my contacts, sorry. All right, here's the first thing about El Nino. This should explain it all, right? No, this is a thermocline, and from 2011 to 2015, this is a little vertical slice of the South Pacific Ocean, and yes, by the middle of 2015, sea surface temperatures have warmed significantly, and that changes the weather pattern. It's been doing that for eons, but nobody really knew about it until the 20th century. And they really didn't have a good handle on it until the 80s. Although they understood that it occurred, it's a cycle, it's a natural cycle that occurs, they didn't really understand that it does affect weather patterns globally until the late 80s. So what is El Nino? Very easy to explain, but very difficult to understand because it is a process. It's not a storm. It's not something that just occurs, but it is a part of the Earth's system. So in a neutral condition, sea surface temperature is warmest in the western Pacific over there near Australia. Anybody who's gone to Australia or even gone to Hawaii, go out on the beach and at 9 o'clock in the morning, that beach's sand is so hot you can't even walk on it. So it's normal to be very warm in the western Pacific. It's not normal to be warm in the eastern Pacific, right off the west coast of South America. So in normal conditions, it's not just the sea surface temperatures that change, it's the depth of the warm ocean water that also affects weather patterns around the world. And this El Nino, the 2015 El Nino, is now tied for the strongest ever. 1997-98, the same. But this one has a lot of deep, warm water in the eastern Pacific. So what happens, again, in a normal year, the trade winds flow west towards Indonesia, and in an El Nino year, with the warm water, just like warm over a plowed field in the spring, you get a lot of convective currents, and we have trade winds that kind of circle around, and we end up with, finally, California's getting some rain. This winter, it's been horrid in the southern plains. East Coast, big blizzard. Central Plains, South U.S. gets big storms, and we go without. So El Nino is not a storm. It is not an event. It is not a direct cause of any weather event. So when Al Roker goes on the air in the morning and says, hey, this El Nino-fueled storm, that's only kind of right. So El Nino is not that. It is not a single event. It is a process. It is just an occasional warming of the sea surface temps. It's a process, but it has global impacts on weather patterns over a very long period of time. It does cause flooding, but it also causes drought, causes below normal temperatures, causes above normal temperatures. The last time El Nino like this was 97, 98. Floods, fires, droughts. 30,000 people died in the 97, 98 El Nino, $100 billion. And here's a little fact. Back in 1819, the El Nino of that one, people are kind of thinking that sank India into a drought that maybe inspired the flu pandemic that killed millions of people around the world back in the end of the First World War. So again, it wasn't really a media event until the 80s. Here's some newspaper headlines from back in the 80s. Here's one from just 2 weeks ago. South Africa's worst drought in memory sinks the country into economic gloom. So that one is just from January 14th. So El Nino is bad. Indeed it is. Gets a lot of media attention, a lot of rain in Florida. Fish move off. The fishermen off the west coast of South America knew in the 1600s, every once in a while, the sea surface temperatures go wacky and the fish disappear. Well, that's happening again. For Australia, they have had 26 El Nino events since 1900. 17 have given them widespread drought, and the wheat crop disappears. El Nino is good because extremely wet winter, finally replenishing topsoil moisture in California. Got heavy snowfall in the Rockies, Northern California, but who cares if they're thirsty in California? We are loving El Nino because it gave us, for the second year in a row, a wonderful, warmer and drier than normal winter. So for us, El Nino is good. Here's how it started back in 1997 and in 2015. A little different. The brighter colors obviously is where the sea surface temperatures are the warmest. June of 97 and June of 2015, very similar, but look at the warmer water off the west coast of the Baja and Mexico. And by the end of 2015, at least by August, things have really warmed significantly off the west coast of California. What does that do? Inspires all kinds of rain. And they've come off a 4-year drought, and they're getting abundant rain. And hey, that's a good thing for them. It's an excellent good thing for them. By August, right at the equator, sea surface temperatures very similar, but look at how much warmer it is across the Pacific. And right now, a series of storms keep hammering the Pacific Northwest and the mountains. They love it. That's good. They're getting a lot of great moisture. Mountains are getting snowpack. Irrigation's going to be really good, but I'm afraid this is going to be like a one-trick pony. Before too long, California is going to go back into a 30-year drought pattern. Here's, back in 1997, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory had a satellite called TOPEX. Now they have JASON 2. They just launched JASON 3. And look at how much stronger the 2015 El Nino is compared to the 97. Same thing here. Look at these sea surface temperatures warm significantly as the year progresses. But again, the key why this El Nino has much more impact for us than the previous ones is how warm it is right off the west coast of Mexico. So the global impact: Europe, less affected by El Nino. Southwest California, affected by storms, flooding, mudslides. In the Pacific Ocean, stronger hurricanes. The northern states, hey, we're warmer and drier than usual. Again, nice. In the Atlantic Ocean, got fewer hurricanes. South Africa, droughty. Australia, drought. Indonesia, New Guinea, drought. Severe forest fires. Flooding in Ecuador and northern Peru. Rains in India, smaller output of rice and sugar. Indonesia, #1 nickel producer, less water to run their mines. Not just agriculture is affected by powerful El Ninos. And look at the brown around Australia. They're worried about another drought coming. So here is for the most of the 20th century and the first few years of the 21st century, sea surface temperatures. Some of you may take a look at, okay, there are 4 kinds of El Nino. we have very strong, strong, moderate, and weak. La Nina is the opposite. That's when the sea surface temperatures cool significantly. And look at those years. Some of you may say, I remember the mid-60s. We had in 62, 63, it was just really wet. I remember we went hay and went west to find hay. And then the next year, 63, we had to go the same place to find hay because it was so dry. So sea surface temperatures, historically, if you go back, some of you remember in the 50s what the weather was like and how some of these weather patterns, sea surface temperatures, maybe do affect what's happening on your farm. But I don't think it's El Nino or La Nina that is really to blame. It's the rapid drop in temperature. Most El Ninos are followed, strong El Ninos or very strong El Ninos are followed by a rapid decline in sea surface temperatures. So what happens is, after 72, 73, look at the La Nina years, 75, 76, the big thunderstorm rains that carved out the 14-foot deep gullies out by Leonard. Middle 70s, the La Nina, we have more to fear from La Nina than an El Nino. Same thing, late 80s, remember the drought of 88? Look at that sharp drop from a very strong El Nino. And we go back to 82. Look at that big decline in sea surface temperatures from a very strong El Nino to a moderate La Nina. And then from 87 to January of 88, look at that big drop. And then we had the drought of 88. Since then, we've gone up and down, but it's the La Nina years, it's the rapid decline in the sea surface temperatures that we have a lot to worry about. So, don't worry now, meteorology school's almost over with here, so. And there's no test at the end. So, but La Nina has a greater effect on things like, not just the weather, but like corn ending stocks. Look at those La Nina years. 74, big dive in corn, U.S. corn ending stocks. 10, 11, and 12, big drop in the corn ending stocks due to the La Nina and the droughts that happen. And corn production, 2012, following a La Nina event, the cool sea surface temperatures changes the patterns of the weather. A La Nina year, of course, we saved the U.S. corn production that year, record production here, and yes, record prices. So that's why the topic of my, subtopic of my speech is, do you really want $7 corn? Because this year, 2016, is looking like a kind of a carbon copy of 2012. Does La Nina or El Nino have an effect on U.S. corn planted acres? Doesn't look like it, does it? Every spring, everybody's going to do what they're going to do, and they certainly hope that they're going to make money, and this year is no different. Corn acres might be up here in the Dakotas. We'll see. Let's take a look at the effect on stocks to use. And again, the stocks to use ratio somewhat affected more so in the La Nina years than the El Nino years. Here's 96 through 2016, the last 20 years. Again, the years where we have that sharp decline, 97 down to 98. We go from a very strong El Nino, and the La Nina is the flood of 96, the flood of 09. Those were all La Nina years, except the 09, that was during an El Nino, so it's not a guarantee. You can't just safely predict with 100% accuracy that it's El Nino. But El Nino's effects are often strongest from September to November. And of course, if you're going to have a 6-month drought, here it's best to have it from October to April. South America, including Brazil, cotton, wheat often see a little price bounce. But here's the effects of El Nino. Remember last fall's harvest? It was about as perfect as can be. The year before, also about as perfect as it can be. El Nino conditions are present. The U.S. expects warmer than average temperatures in the western and northern U.S. That's good. Wetter than average in parts of the U.S. Gulf Coast and Florida. That's happening. Drier than average conditions in the Ohio Valley and Pacific Northwest. That happened last summer. Remember how dry Indiana was and how wet Missouri was. until all of a sudden the spigot shut off. So everybody agrees El Nino is coming to an end. The 2015-2016 El Nino has peaked, and it's how rapidly the sea surface temperatures decline is probably what's going to determine what kind of weather we have. So with El Nino coming to an end, and these are all the 8 different computer models that predict that by August or September, we're going to be in a La Nina, maybe a weak La Nina. El Nino slowly ending means a continued warmer than normal and drier than normal spring. Southern U.S. continues wetter than normal. So a return to or neutral or a La Nina guarantees pretty much for the northwestern half of the U.S., including us, a warm spring. Spring weather pattern, warm and dry. El Nino, it was good. La Nina, not good. A cold winter, a cold spring. So again, it's how quickly we go to La Nina will determine what kind of spring we have. Let's shoot through these pretty quick. The 82, 83, 97, 98, again, pretty dry here, pretty warm weather here. 72, 73, 65, 66, very droughty for the southern part of the U.S., Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana. So a lot of people are going to experience a real dry 2016. Question is, how far north in the U.S. will the drought happen? So let's look at some other forecasts, then we'll take a look at mine. First, skiers love this forecast. They like the Japanese model. Around the western U.S., it's predicting a very warm, the darker colors is where the warm temperatures are going to be. March, April, May, very warm in the Pacific, obviously, and the southern part of the U.S. They're predicting a cool March, April, May here. As far as temperatures, cool in the central plains, but here in the northern, at least southern part, south of Highway 46, it looks like, the Japanese are thinking that it's going to be cool for June, July, August. I don't buy that. June, July, August precipitation looks normal or above normal even. Montana, Wyoming, and Minnesota. Again, I don't buy that either, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed. For the September, October, November, warmer than normal temperatures, precipitation, drier than normal. Again, I buy that. Here's the Weather Service's forecast. For April, May, June, looks pretty warm, pretty dry. Getting in the field early. May, June, July, pretty warm. But we're starting to see the effects of what will be, except for in the Intermountain West, above normal precipitation, we're starting to see a drought take shape. June, July, August, very warm, East Coast, West Coast, quite warm here up the middle part of the U.S. Now we have, I think, a computer glitch. For the summer and early fall, they're saying 50% chance of equal chances for wet or not. July, August, September, warmer than normal up the Central Plains. And then the fall, temperatures warmer than normals, but starting to really cook down in the desert Southwest. For September, October, November, precipitation, very dry, continues in the southern plains. And then December, January, February, going to be cold. Same for precipitation, above normal precipitation. Again, we're going into a La Nina winter coming up. So here's Bryce Anderson's forecast. Let's hear what he has to say. That's encouraging, huh? Normal production season for temperatures, precipitation, and yield. All right, here's Drew Lerner. He's from World Weather. You hear him on the Red River Farm Network. See what he has to say.
There will be a tendency for us to have biases will provide timely showers in the region over the summer, but not necessarily an abundance of moisture. So you would have maybe a slight drier bias, but you would probably see timely precipitation occur across the region.
Okay, normal. Is normal good? I guess so. All right, here's what you bought tickets for. Now comes my forecast. We're going to look at the big picture, then we're going to look at and because we only got like 5 minutes to go here, we're going to move through pretty quickly. I see a warmer than normal spring, and things have been wet all winter down south, going to be cooler than normal. Drier than normal in April. Talked to a guy this morning from Horace, he got in the field March 15th last year. Could be getting in real early again. Normal temperatures, cooler than normal, though starting to form up in the prairie provinces of Canada, but normal for us. What does normal mean? Well, temperatures in the 30s, a few 20s at night, warming to the 30s during the day. A lot more as we get towards the end of May, more 30s and 40s for overnight lows. But with drier than normal, we can have some cool nights and some warm events. Iowa, Nebraska, some strong storms early summer. And yet, June might be a little cooler than normal in the western part of the Dakotas. But look at the heat and the dry start to build in the southern part of the U.S. For us, especially in the southern parts of North Dakota, south of Highway 46 again, most of Minnesota, South Dakota, adequate rain in June. Again, it's the process of coming out of an El Nino event into a La Nina. But for July, things are going to start to cook in the southern plains. Again, this is all based on precedents, what happens more often than not historically. By July, Mother Nature shuts the spigot off. I think the mountains will continue to see some moisture coming in, but dry is going to build for Nebraska, Iowa, Indiana. The I-states are going to have it hot, and by August, we'll be in a full-blown drought for the south and central plains. Will be warmer than normal. Let's keep our fingers crossed that by August, rainfall, it's going to be pretty sparse, even here, as the drought expands northward. Warmer than normal in September, drier than normal in September. But drought conditions will persist, and I see California going back to a 30-year drought pattern. This is going to be a one-trick pony, the wet winter that they're having now. Warmer than normal for October, looking good. Should have another good harvest. The only problem is I see some rain. Remember, you know how when you turn the calendar to October and all of a sudden we get a bunch of rain, sugar beet guys? Well, that's we have a better than normal chance of that happening again. Let's zoom in here and take a look at us. Again, for April, warmer than normal, drier than normal. A good start to the spring field work. Normal temperatures for everybody with one exception. I see, like what happened May 13th, May 12th, 14th of 2013, a hard freeze coming in May. Again, the precedent has been set for when we come out of a strong El Nino, move into a La Nina, that there could be a killing freeze all the way down to northern Iowa, like happened about 3 years ago. How many, let's have a show of hands, how many would rather, if you're going to have a killing freeze on May 8th or May 21st, how many would like to have it happen May 8th versus the 21st? Okay, anybody would rather have it on the 21st? Okay, the new moon is the 8th, the full moon is the 21st. And so it looks, well, I'm not like the weird little kid who sets the dumpster on fire and then stands in the bushes all excited when all the fire trucks show up. I hope to God it doesn't happen. But the precedent, we have a better than 50% chance of that happening. So again, drought-tolerant corn, frost-tolerant corn varieties. Okay, drier than normal in May, and then we get into June, normal temperatures. Warmer than normal begins for the central southern plains. Adequate rain for us in June. That's going to be a good thing. Some pretty powerful storms down in Iowa and Nebraska in early May and June, but the heat and the drought will build. Normal precip here in July, and that means 2 to 3 days with thunderstorms and 2 to 3 days with some scattered showers. So 20% of July should be kind of saving grace with a little bit of rain. And then August, warmer than normal. Look at the heat build into South Dakota. August rainfall will be really sparse. Again, South Dakota, especially South Dakota, southern Minnesota. Warmer than normal for September, drier than normal this fall, and drought conditions will persist for the central plains. Warmer than normal for us into October, but the precipitation again, it's not normal to have 5 inches of rain on the 1st of October, but I see a little wetter, a little more challenging year. I mean, we've had 2 perfect harvests. The odds of having 3 in a row, mathematically, they're stacked against us. So, again, here's the conclusion. This is my forecast. Warm start, should be able to get everything in early. Possible mid-May killing freeze, replanting may be required. Excellent crop development through midsummer, then turning hot and dry. Excellent September harvest weather, but then early October rainfall, likely with wet into late October. Sorry, there's one more thing. Snowbirds, you're going to love this. Next winter is going to be a bugger. We remember 96, 97? If it doesn't happen the winter of 2016, 2017, it's going to happen 2017, 2018. Or it could happen both winters. It's going to be much colder than normal, wetter than normal, but certainly much colder than normal. So in summary, got warm and dry till Memorial Day, normal temps and precip until 4th of July, and then a Midwest drought similar to 2012, hopefully will stay south of us, but expected to creep northward, and the trend through the summer will be going hot, going dry, and then normal precipitation, warmer than normal October and early November, but prepare for a seriously cold and snowy winter for 16, 17, but especially for 17, 18. So, 32 seconds left. Any questions? You haven't found the text? Okay.
How does the moon cause a hard freeze in May?
Well, usually during, this happens in the fall, the harvest moon, the clear sky often happens around a moon. The Farmer's Almanac loves to use that, but full moon, clear sky, May, get some big storms to the south of us, cold air rushing south from Canada, happens a lot, big storms to the south, clear sky at night, cold air rushing in. So yeah, and it doesn't often happen during the new moon, but it does happen more often than not during moon changes or phase changes of the moon. New moon, more often full moon. Any other questions? Looks like about it. All right. Thank you very much. If we get $6.50, let's show my last, sorry, we ran into Paul's. If we get $6.50 corn because of the weather, enjoy. If we have tough weather, well, that won't be so enjoyable, but hopefully it will be somebody else's misery and not here. Thank you.